The sun dipped behind the towering golden spires of the emirate, casting long shadows over the grand palace where billionaire Sheikh Rashad Al-Khoury, a man as enigmatic as he was commanding, prepared to finalize a landmark deal that would cement his dominion over vast territories of wealth and influence. Yet amidst the silk-draped halls, perfumed with the exotic aroma of oud and spices, a whisper disturbed the silence, a secret unleashed by the voice of a young maid. Speaking softly but unmistakably in Chinese, Rashad's sharp gaze caught the faint cadence on the air, betraying an infraction of the strict codes he imposed within his realm. The exquisite tapestries and polished marble underfoot bore witness to his unassailable power, but this small crack in his ordered world awakened a storm of curiosity and suspicion. His heart, usually contained beneath layers of steel-cold control, quickened with the weight of unknown truths. The maid, Mai, moved gracefully through the palace corridors, her posture composed yet veiling a tightly wound tension. Her dark eyes, pools of silent strength, flickered with vulnerability as she ended the call, masking the tremble of her hands beneath supple gloves. Every step she took was measured, concealing a past tangled in shadows far from the opulence surrounding her. The following day, Rashad summoned Mai to his private chamber, a sanctum of whispered secrets, where ivory columns rose beneath frescoed ceilings, and the scent of jasmine lingered like a solemn promise. The air between them was taut with unspoken questions. Rashad's penetrating eyes regarded her not merely as a servant, but as a keeper of mysteries that threatened to unravel his meticulously woven empire. "You speak in tongues I do not understand." His voice was calm, but edged with an unmistakable steel. "Why do you conceal your words from me?" Mai bowed her head slightly, the smallest defiance sparking beneath her calm exterior. "My loyalty to you is beyond question, Sheikh, but some truths are not easily shared, even here." In that charged silence, their glances interwove. His power pressed, but met by the quiet resilience of one who refused to break. Rashad's mind raced, haunted by shadows of distrust, yet drawn inexplicably toward the enigma before him. As she prepared to retreat, a name slipped from her lips. Not a name, but a key, a connection that stretched beyond the palace walls to forces veiled in danger and influence. Forces that could threaten not only Rashad's fortune, but his very life. A chill ran down Rashad's spine as realization dawned. This was no mere secret phone call. Mai's hidden conversations wove into a web of intrigue, far larger than he had imagined. The woman who served at his side was tied to a world that could bring the mightiest of empires to its knees. Before the inevitable storm could break wide open, the Sheikh's voice cut through the rising tension, steady but commanding. "You will tell me everything. No more lies." And before the next secret of this vast emirate unfolds, quickly check if you are already part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies are yet to be shaped, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave your like if the heart of this billionaire sheikh has already intrigued you. Tell me in the comments, from which city do you follow this saga, and what twist do you think is coming? Your passion for these dramas inspires us to continue. Thank you for being with us. The narrow corridor outside Sheikh Rashad al-Khoury's private chamber felt colder than the lavish marble inside. Mai's hands trembled ever so slightly as she remained still, the weight of his command pressing down on her with an unforgiving force. Her dark eyes met his, a silent dance of defiance and submission. You will tell me everything, no more lies. His voice was a blade sharpening on stone, unyielding and precise. For a moment, the opulent walls, the fragrant jasmine hanging in the air, and the intricate frescoes vanished beneath the gravity of those words. Mai's breath hitched, memories clashing inside her like a tempest. She had come so far from the narrow alleyways of Shanghai, where even the shadows whispered dangers. Here, within this gilded cage, secrets whispered louder than any bustling marketplace ever could. The truth was a poison, yet it clung stubbornly to her tongue. I serve you, Sheikh, she finally murmured, voice low and steady, despite the tempest within. But there are forces deeper than these walls, deeper than your empire. Rashad's gaze sharpened, tracing the delicate lines of tension strewn across her face. He had always prided himself on control, over business, territory, even his own. Pelt, but this fragile servant, no, this keeper of clandestine knowledge, had quietly shattered the illusion of his invulnerability. Who threatens my dominion? He demanded, stepping closer until the scent of oud and cedarwood intertwined between them. Mai swallowed past a sudden lump in her throat. Her mind raced, balancing the peril of betrayal against the devastation of silence. There are emissaries tied to your rivals, men who negotiate in shadows, puppeteers who spin webs from greed, she confessed, the words cutting the silence like shards of broken glass. Rashad's jaw clenched, the usual sparkle of dominance in his eyes, now shadowed by cautious calculation. A labyrinth of political intrigue, stretching far beyond even his vast reach, teetered on the edge of exposure. Why was this kept from me? He pressed, voice cold yet tinged with a flicker of wounded pride. Mai's gloved fingers tightened into fists. Because the web involves those you trust most, secrets so dangerous they could destroy not only your empire, but the fragile peace we've long built. The room seemed to shrink, the gold and marble holding no promise now, only the suffocating gravity of deception. Rashad's heart, armored so long with pride and authority, ached within the silence. I trusted you, he said quietly, the edges of his voice raw. And I remain loyal, she replied, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. But loyalty does not mean blindness, Sheikh. I bear the burden so you won't fall. For a heartbeat, the tension wavered, two souls suspended between betrayal and bond. Then a faint sound echoed down the vast corridor, footsteps soft but purposeful. Rashad's sharp eyes darted toward the door as if it would unravel the mystery lurking in shadows. Who else knows of this, Mai? He demanded. No one, she said, voice barely a whisper. Except him. The name slipped free like a secret arrow. Kareem. Rashad's breath froze. Karim al-Rashid, his closest advisor, had been a brother in their youth, a confidant, navigating the treacheries of the business world and tribal alliances alike. Karim? Rashad echoed, disbelief and suspicion clashing violently within him. Not all is as it seems, Mai warned. Karim's allegiance is fractured. He dances with a darkness even I cannot fully comprehend. The revelation shattered an unspoken code between the men. Trust, once unbreakable, now tarnished with suspicion. Rashad turned away, anger and hurt thunderous in his veins. How easily his empire could crumble, built on foundations of sand and hidden schemes. His fingers brushed the cold edge of the intricately carved desk, seeking ground amid the storm. All this time, he murmured, I was blind. And now the enemy wears the face of a brother. Mai stepped forward, hesitation melting into resolve. Sheikh, you are not alone in this. Together we can unravel the threads before they strangle us all. A flicker of something unreadable passed through Rashad's gaze. Something softer beneath the usual steel. A flicker of need, perhaps, or trust. But shadows gathered swiftly. Suddenly, the grand oak door burst open with a heavy slam. A courier, breathless and anxious, bowed deeply. Your Highness, urgent news from the border. Our caravans were attacked tonight. The enemy sends a message. Rashad's eyes narrowed, rage igniting. Who dares challenge my authority on my land? Mai's heart pounded. The danger was no longer whispered in secret calls. It had arrived, violent and bare. He turned toward the wide window, overlooking the vast desert, where the last glimmers of twilight gave way to a burning horizon. This is no mere skirmish, Rashad said, voice low, steel hard. It is a declaration of war. Mai's breath caught as she saw the storm brewing behind the Billionaire Sheikh's calm facade. The tempest that few had ever witnessed firsthand. A world balanced on the knife's edge of trust, betrayal, and power. And at its heart, a secret that could unravel everything. Rashad's eyes met Mai's once more, a silent command pooling in their depths. The time for shadows was over. I want Karim's loyalty tested, he whispered. Prepare yourself, Mai. Tomorrow we strike at the root of this poison. Outside, the desert winds howled like the past, calling for reckoning. And somewhere, hidden in the labyrinth of palace intrigue, a single whispered name stirred the flames of a dangerous game yet to be played. The weight of the courier's urgent news settled like a shadow over the opulent chamber. Rashad's jaw tightened as the low light from the dying sun slipped through the tall windows, catching the sharp angles of his face, once regal, now carved by tension. Mai stood close, the cool silk of her gloves trailing a faint contrast against the warmth of the jasmine air. She watched the storm flicker in Rashad's eyes, a tempest few had dared witness. His fortress of control, so meticulously crafted, now shivered on the edge of collapse. We strike at the root tomorrow, Rashad murmured, voice dark and resolute. Karim's loyalties will be tested. For too long, shadows have crept through my walls, roots dug deep in treachery. A faint stir moved in Mai's chest, pain and hope intertwined. To stand beside this billionaire sheikh was to teeter on a knife's edge, danger and desire interlaced, inseparable. Night cloaked the emirate, as Rashad dismissed the courier with a silent nod. The marble floor echoed his footsteps as he paced, the scent of oud intensifying with his every breath. Every corner of the grand room felt too tight, as if the very walls conspired against him. Mai's heart pounded against the silence between them. Finally, she dared to speak, her voice a whisper against the gathering storm. "Sheikh, if Kareem's betrayal runs so deep, what of those closest to you? Your family? Your council?" A shadow darkened Rashad's gaze. "Trust is a luxury I can no longer afford. The man I called brother may be the architect of my destruction." His admission cracked the armor he wore, revealing a vulnerability buried beneath decades of power. A man haunted by ghosts of loyalty and loss. Mai felt a stir of compassion that surprised her. "We cannot let doubt consume you," she said softly, stepping closer, their proximity charged with unspoken tension. "I will stand by your side. We'll expose the betrayal before it devours all you have." Rashad's eyes locked onto hers, fierce, commanding, yet tinged with an unfamiliar softness. Between them, an electric current hummed, a fragile thread of trust weaving through shadows. Suddenly, a soft click echoed from the adjoining study. Both turned sharply, instincts sharpened to a razor's edge. The heavy oak door creaked open just a crack. A figure slipped inside, slender, cloaked in the subtle elegance befitting the palace, yet eyes sharp with calculation. "Forgive the intrusion, Your Highness." The man's voice was velvet, smooth and dangerous. Rashad's gaze fell on Kareem al-Rashid himself, stepping through the threshold with a measured grace that barely concealed an undercurrent of menace. "Kareem," Rashad acknowledged, voice low yet brittle. "Your timing is impeccable." Kareem's lips curled into a faint smile, one that did not reach his eyes. "News from the border demands your attention directly, my friend. Our enemies grow bold, and alliances shift as sands swirl." Mai's pulse surged, recognition flickering in her stare. The web of deceit had just woven a darker strand. Rashad rose from his seat, the gold embroidery across his robes catching the fading light like flames. "We speak openly today. No more veils to hide the truth." Kareem's eyes locked with Mai's briefly, awareness sharp and fleeting, then returned to Rashad. "Truth is a luxury when survival is at stake. You would do well to remember that." The tension became a living beast in the room, breathing down their necks. Mai's fingers clenched the folds of her gown, her mind racing to discern friend from foe. Rashad's voice cut through the charged silence. "I trusted you once without question. Now everything must prove itself." Kareem inclined his head, the ghost of old camaraderie lingering just beneath the scales of suspicion. "I remain loyal, Rashad, but loyalty is not blind obedience. Sometimes it demands sacrifice." A bitter laugh escaped Rashad, the weight of years pressing down. Sacrifice is easily demanded, but rarely understood. Their standoff was broken by a sudden, sharp knock at the grand doors. A messenger entered unannounced, eyes wide with urgency. An encrypted dispatch, Sheikh, from the outer tribes. The situation worsens. Rashad took the sealed scroll, the weight of it heavier than any gold or title. He broke the seal with deliberate care, unfolding the parchment under the gleam of the crystal chandelier. His face darkened further. The tribes are restless. Promises made in secret. Promises broken. Mai's breath caught. The growing danger was no longer confined to palace intrigue. It seeped into lands, people, and loyalties far beyond the gilded walls. Rashad's gaze shifted to the horizon, where twilight bled into the endless desert night. This empire requires more than wealth and power. It demands vigilance, and those willing to wield both with ruthless wisdom. He turned back to Mai, eyes burning with a fire that both frightened and drew her nearer. Prepare yourself. Tomorrow we move against our enemies, within and without. The path ahead is stained with betrayal, but I will not let my kingdom fall. Mai bowed her head, the weight of destiny settling upon her like the desert heat. Yet somewhere beneath her calm, a fierce determination sparked to life, a desire to stand beside this billionaire sheikh through every storm. Outside, the soft murmur of palace servants carried faint echoes of unsettled nights to come. Shadows whispered between the marble pillars, and the scent of jasmine masked a creeping tension like poison in the air. The battle for control, trust, and survival had only just begun. As the night deepened, Rashad stepped toward the window once more. His gaze caught a subtle movement in the distant courtyard, a figure cloaked, watching, waiting. A smile barely touched Rashad's lips, cold, sharp, and full of promise. The game was far from over. And hidden in the silence, a single whispered name slipped like a blade into the night air. Zara. The night had thickened around the palace, drawing its velvet shadows across the golden halls as Rashad al-Khoury stood motionless before the expansive window. His eyes traced the silhouette of the desert beyond, where darkness met an endless horizon. But his thoughts were miles deeper, entangled in webs woven by betrayal and whispered secrets. The name Zara lingered in his mind, a ghost refusing to fade. Mai watched him quietly from a few steps away. The fragile silence between them was heavy, fraught with the weight of unspoken fears and fragile trust. Though she had lived in the glimmering heart of the emirate for months, serving at Rashad's side, the gulf between their worlds often felt immeasurable. Yet now that gulf seemed bridged, not by grandeur or power, but by vulnerability. The power she glimpsed behind his steel gaze was tempered by an ache only few had seen. Her voice broke the stillness, soft and steady. Sheikh, there is much more at stake than land or titles. This goes deeper than alliances or treachery. He turned, his silhouette framed by the glow of lanterns that cast dancing shadows on the marble floor. The tension in his shoulders tightened, yet something like weary openness flickered in his gaze. Tell me everything, Mai. No half-truths, no hidden corners. His voice was low, but carried the weight of command and need. She hesitated, weighing the danger of the words against the burden of silence. Then, step by measured step, she moved closer. the delicate rustle of her silken gown the only sound. There is a faction within the council, those who would see the empire crumble from the inside. They are patient predators, cloaked in honor, but driven by greed. A flicker of cold fire ignited in Rashad's eyes. Names! I want names! Mai swallowed hard. The names she held were keys to a vault of pain and betrayal. Zara, she whispered. Rashad's breath caught. The name was both dagger and wound, a secret kept in shadows, spoken only in the rarest moments of solitude. She was once trusted, Mai continued, a whispered promise in your court. But her ambitions, they poison beneath the surface. He paced, the heavy folds of his robe sweeping over the cool stone floor. How deep does her reach go? Deeper than you imagine. She moves like a shadow in the desert night, subtle, relentless. She manipulates those closest to you. Her web entangles even those who call themselves your allies. The room seemed to pulse with danger. Rashad's mind spun with memories. Trust misplaced, smiles that masked venom, friendships turned cold. The empire he had built with iron hands and ruthless will was fragile, trembling on the edge of ruin. A sudden knock shattered the heavy air. Both turned sharply as the grand doors creaked open. A tall figure cloaked in midnight approached. The soft clink of fine metal accented the quiet tension. Rashad's gaze hardened. You bring news, I presume? The messenger bowed deeply, eyes darting nervously. Sheikh, the tribes grow restless. Zara's influence spreads beyond whispers. There are signs of rebellion, secret deals forged in darkness. A slow pulse of anger surged in Rashad's chest. His empire was a fortress built on loyalty and fear. Yet it now felt more like sand slipping through his fingers. Prepare the guards, Rashad commanded, voice sharp as a scimitar. I will not let treachery fester within these walls. Mai's eyes met his, fiery, determined. And what of the others, Sheikh? If Zara's poison spreads so far, who else remains untainted? He exhaled slowly, the weight of uncertainty settling over him like a desert storm ready to break. Even the closest blood may be tainted, he admitted. Trust has become a dangerous gamble. Pain flashed in his gaze, a flicker of the man before the Sheikh, a man haunted by losses he dare not speak aloud. Mai stepped forward, courage flaring beneath her composed exterior. Then we fight the shadows together. Let none stand. Alone in the darkness, their hands brushed, a fleeting connection charged with electric promise, a fragile alliance forged not just out of duty, but something dangerously close to hope. Before words could follow, a faint sound echoed from the corridor beyond. A whisper of movement, a ghost of steps. Rashad's eyes narrowed, every muscle tensing like a predator sensing prey. The game is shifting, he growled. We must move swiftly. He turned again toward the window, the desert's silence, now a hollow prelude to chaos. His mind raced between strategy and suspicion as the chandelier's crystals caught the flickering candlelight, casting fractured rainbows against the walls. Mai's voice was barely above a murmur. What will you do, Sheikh? When the enemy wields secrets as weapons, what strength remains? A shadow softened Rashad's. expression. A rare vulnerability, fleeting but profound. "I will do what I must," he said, voice resolute. But no victory comes without sacrifice. The whispers of the night deepened. Somewhere beneath the starlit sky, the pulse of a deadly game quickened, and the palace walls hid eyes that watched, waiting. And then, from the shadows behind Rashad's throne, a faint scent drifted, a scent of jasmine and betrayal, unmistakably close. Turning sharply, his gaze, locked on a folded parchment, slipped beneath the heavy door, the wax seal bearing a mark he recognized and feared. In the silent room, alone with secrets and lies, Rashad's fingers closed around the paper, and with it, the incendiary promise that everything he believed might unravel in the days ahead. The future of his empire, his heart, and the woman who dared to stand beside him, now hung by a thread as fragile as desert glass. And in that suspended moment, the whispered name slithered again in the stillness. Zara. The tempest had only just begun to roar. The parchment trembled slightly in Sheikh Rashad's grasp. The wax seal cracked, but still holding secrets as tightly as the empire he commanded. The scent of jasmine mingled with the faint trace of oud, yet neither fragrance could mask the bitter truth now bleeding through the gilded silence of the chamber. Mai's eyes searched his, measuring the storm behind his calm mask. The name Zara echoed in the depths of their shared unease, a shadow threading its way through every whispered corner of the palace. Rashad's voice was low, roughened by the weight of betrayal. "Zara, she was never just a traitor. She was my confidant, the silent guardian of my legacy. To learn she walks among my council like a serpent, poisoning trust, is a wound that cuts deeper than any blade." He broke the scroll open further, revealing cryptic letters stamped with foreign insignias and symbols familiar only to those entangled in the ruthless dance of desert politics. Each word was a blade aimed at the heart of his sovereignty, a map of treacheries, concealed beneath courtesies and fine silks. "Mai," he said, voice now urgent, "we stand at a precipice." Her claws reach far beyond mere whispers. She has allies, hidden, loyal, dangerous. His fingers brushed the edge of the parchment, trembling not from weakness, but from the gravity of the revelation. Mai stepped closer, her breath shallow but determined. "Then we must unmask her before she corrupts what remains untainted. But Sheikh, you must understand, this is no simple revolt. It's a war of shadows, and Zara plays a game with no rules." Rashad looked beyond her, eyes settling on the endless desert, where the night winds lay thick and merciless. The palace, with all its opulence, suddenly felt too small, a gilded cage confining a man whose kingdom was fracturing beneath his feet. "Will you stand with me, Mai?" His voice was quieter now, stripped of command, edged with a fragile hope. Her gaze softened, fierce and unwavering. "Always, Sheikh. Not just because I serve you, but because I believe in what you are fighting to save." In that charged silence, a mutual understanding blossomed. A fragile alliance, born of necessity and a shared longing for truth amidst deception. The echo of footsteps interrupted the moment, swift and certain. A guard entered silently, his face pale beneath the flickering torchlight. "Your Highness," he whispered, "news from the border. Chaos has erupted. The caravans have been attacked again. This time it was no band of common thieves. Rashad's eyes flared with cold fire. Who dares challenge the sovereignty of my lands? The guard breathed heavily, the weight of his news hanging like a suffocating veil. We have evidence, signs pointing to Zara's hand. Her influence has stirred the tribes into rebellion. A bitter laugh escaped Rashad, the sound hollow and haunted. She conjures storms from whispers, and now the desert burns. Mai's fingers clenched into tight fists at her. Sides. It is as I feared. She moves unseen, but with deadly purpose. The room seemed to pulse with urgency. The crystal chandeliers casting fractured reflections upon polished marble, mirroring the fractured trust within its walls. Rashad turned abruptly, the gold embroidery of his robes aflame with the fading light. Summon the council. Tonight, we confront the poison in our midst. Mai's voice, steady despite the tremor beneath, cut through the mounting tension. And Kareem, Sheikh? The man whose loyalty is as fogged as the desert dawn? Rashad's jaw tightened, the memory of their brotherhood twisting into a cruel irony. Kareem's shadows lengthen with the night. He walks a line I no longer can follow blindly. His gaze landed on her, fierce and searching. You will be at my side when the veil lifts, Mai. We will expose every hidden serpent before they strike. The distant howl of desert winds seeped through the open window, carrying with it a bitter promise of the battles to come. As the palace hummed with hurried preparations, Rashad retreated to the inner sanctum, where the faces of his ancestors watched from ornate portraits, their eyes eternal witnesses to the rise and fall of empires. A flicker of vulnerability softened the overpowering facade of the Billionaire Sheikh. Memories of a time before crowns and weighted responsibilities, the warmth of simpler love, the fleeting innocence stolen by ambition, haunted the shadows of his mind. Mai approached quietly, her presence a balm against the harshness of his solitude. She extended a gloved hand, her touch both a reassurance and a silent pledge. Not all battles are fought with swords, Sheikh, she whispered. Some are won with the strength of those who refuse to abandon hope. He took her hand, the contact brief but electric, a tether in a world unraveling fast. Outside, the palace gardens lay shrouded in darkness, the once vibrant blossoms wilted under the growing threat. The scent of night-blooming jasmine could not mask the encroaching poison of treachery. Suddenly, a faint rustle stirred from the shadows near the fountain. Rashad's eyes narrowed, instincts honed by years of survival flickering to life. A figure stepped forward, a woman cloaked in midnight, face obscured, save for eyes gleaming with cold intent. She approaches, Rashad murmured, bringing with her the weight of 1,000 broken oaths. Mai's breath caught, the tension coiling tight. Like a serpent poised to strike, the Sheikh's hand fell to the hilt of a hidden dagger beneath his robe, the lethal promise of retribution simmering beneath his calm exterior. Prepare yourself, Mai, he said, voice deadly serious. Zara's game begins anew, and this time the cost will be paid in blood. The shadows swallowed the stranger's form, leaving behind the chilling silence of impending war. And in that silence, the whispered name echoed once more. Zara. The chill in the palace air deepened as Rashad al-Khoury held the sealed parchment between his fingers, the weight of its revelation sinking into his chest like a stone dragging him under. The delicate fragrance of jasmine, once so comforting, now clung to the shadows like a shroud of deceit. Each breath he took was thick with the taste of betrayal and the bitter promise of coming war. Mai stood just a few steps behind him, her gloved hands clenched tightly at her sides. Her gaze was steady, unwavering. But inside, a tempest raged, torn between the loyalty she owed the Sheikh and the secrets she guarded for a far darker purpose. She had come too far, lost too much, to let the empire crumble without a fight. Yet the knowledge of Zara's reach chilled her soul. Mai's voice broke softly through the silence. The council is fractured. Zara's venom isn't confined to whispered rumors. It seeps into every alliance, twisting loyalties and poisoning hearts. If we wait, the empire will bleed from within. Rashad's eyes, sharp as desert lightning, locked onto hers. In them, the proud fire of a ruler burned brighter than ever, despite the shadows stretching across his kingdom. "Then we act," he declared, his voice a low command that reverberated through the room like the strike of a war drum. "Tonight, the palace will witness the reckoning it has long feared." The marble floors gleamed beneath their feet, reflecting the swirl of flickering candlelight, while the distant howling of desert winds seemed to echo the growing storm in Rashad's heart. The opulence surrounding them, golden pillars, ornate tapestries embroidered with tales of glory, felt suddenly suffocating, a gilded cage tightening with each passing moment. Mai took a tentative step closer. "Sheikh, what of Kareem? His face hides more than loyalty these days. If Zara twists him too, who else is caught in this web?" Rashad's jaw tightened, the faint flicker of a once unshakable brotherhood, now stained with suspicion. "Kareem wears the mask of a friend, but I sense the shadows beneath. Trust must be earned again, or burned away." Their shared silence was shattered by the soft click of the grand doors opening. A slender figure slipped inside, drifting like a shadow into the light. Zara. She paused, just within the room, her dark eyes gleaming with a predator's satisfaction as they swept over Rashad and Mai. Her presence was like a cold wind cutting through silk, unsettling every fiber of the space. "Your Highness," Zara's voice was silk wrapped in steel. "I hope to spare you this confrontation, but some truths refuse to stay buried." Rashad stood, regal and unyielding, the gold of his robes catching fire in the candlelight. "Your poison has spread far enough, Zara. I will root it out, or this empire will fall with it." A slow, cruel smile curved Zara's lips. "You mistake ambition for poison, Rashad. I seek only what is mine by right." Mai's fingers brushed the hidden dagger at her waist, a subtle promise that beneath the delicate exterior lurked a fierce protector. Her eyes never left Zara's, a silent warning threading through their unspoken words. "This palace was built on loyalty," Rashad's voice thundered, "and I will remind all who dwell within its walls what that means." Zara's smile faltered for the briefest moment before her eyes narrowed. "Loyalty like that of your brother Kareem? How easily trust unravels." Rashad's blood ran cold at her. Mention of Kareem, his closest friend turned potential traitor. A frown carved deep lines into his proud face. "If Kareem falls beneath your sway, then his debts will be collected. The tension crackled like static before a desert storm. Shadows seemed to twist and lengthen. Mai pressed closer to Rashad's side, her heart pounding, but her composure unbroken. This was a game of shadows, but she was no mere pawn. "We will expose the snakes hiding in plain sight," Mai said quietly, her voice a shield forged from resolve. Zara's laughter was a low, dangerous thing. "You underestimate the depths I will sink to. Not all betray from greed. Sometimes it is for power, and sometimes for survival." Rashad's gaze pierced the darkness beyond Zara, his mind racing through alliances and enemies. Doubts and fears. The fragile peace he had guarded for years now hung by a thread, and Zara was the blade threatening to sever it. "Enough words," Rashad growled. "The night is ripe for action. Prepare yourselves." His eyes searched Mai's for reassurance, an unspoken pact forged in fire. "Tomorrow we root out the darkness, starting with the serpent at the heart of this palace." Zara stepped back, the faintest glint of satisfaction in her eyes. "Then let the hunt begin. But beware, Sheikh. Every move you make will be met with shadows." With that, she slipped from the room, her departure as silent and haunting as her arrival. The door's heavy wood settled with a final thud, leaving Rashad and Mai alone amid the echoes of whispered threats. Mai exhaled slowly, the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on her. The Empire's fate and their own trembled between promises and peril. Rashad's face softened for a fleeting heartbeat. The proud ruler replaced by the man beneath, the man who had loved and lost, whose heart now beat in tandem with hers, fragile but fierce. "The storm gathers," he murmured, "and in its eye a secret waits to be unearthed." A faint rustle stirred behind the heavy curtains, drawing their eyes sharply to a shadowed figure watching from the depths of the chamber. And then, with a voice barely above a whisper, but cutting like glass through the thickened air, "Zara is not alone." The night deepened within the palace, the shadows weaving tighter like a silken snare around every whispered secret. Rashad al-Khoury stood rigid, the delicate parchment clenched in his hand trembling slightly, the weight of the truth bearing down heavier than any crown. The name Zara echoed relentlessly, a ghost stalking the grand halls. Mai remained just behind him, her breaths steady yet charged with the tempest beneath. The fragrance of jasmine no longer brought comfort. Instead, it clung to the air like a veil of betrayal. She had pledged her loyalty to Rashad, but now, piece by piece, she understood how fragile trust had become in this gilded prison. "Sheikh!" Mai's voice was a desperate thread unraveling toward him. "Zara's reach extends further than even you imagine. The council fractures beneath her influence, alliances decaying like wilted roses. She doesn't just whisper poison, she commands it." Rashad's eyes narrowed, sparking like desert lightning. The golden glow of the chandeliers fractured across his sharp profile, revealing the cracks in his formidable armor. "We cannot afford hesitation," he murmured, voice thick with resolve. "Tonight, the palace will witness a reckoning born of shadows and steel. His words fell into the heavy air, as if a decree carved in stone. Mai stepped closer, a flicker of both fear and fierce hope shining through her dark eyes. And Karim, his footsteps have grown uncertain. This web of deceit spreads beneath even his feet. A bitter smile, bitter as desert dust, tugged at Rashad's lips. Karim's loyalty dangles on a thread frayed by temptation and fear. I will test his heart and expose what lies beneath. The palace doors groaned open softly, slicing the tension. A silhouette slipped through, the very embodiment of danger cloaked in elegance. Zara stepped into the room, her gaze sharp as obsidian. She moved with predatory grace, the faintest curl of a smile playing on crimson lips that whispered of betrayal. "Your Highness," Zara's voice was velvet laced with venom. "I wish to spare you this confrontation, but the truth desires no shadow to hide beneath." Rashad straightened, regal and unyielding, robes shimmering like burning gold. "Your treachery has poisoned this realm long enough." A cruel smile twisted Zara's features. "Treacherous? No. Ambitious? Yes. I seek what is mine by right." Their eyes locked with the fury of sandstorms clashing across endless dunes. Between the two, the air crackled with unspoken challenges and fragile threats. Mai's hand brushed the hilt of her hidden dagger. A silent sentinel, prepared for the coming storm. Her gaze dared meet Zara's, an unflinching warning. This palace was no longer just a stage, it was a battlefield. This kingdom was built on loyalty, Rashad thundered, voice slicing through shadows. "I will remind all who dwell here of its price." Zara's narrowed eyes glittered dangerously. "Loyalty? Like that of your brother Karim? Trust slips so easily when ambition whispers sweet temptations." The mention of Karim sent an icy shiver down Rashad's spine. The brotherhood forged in youth, now marred by suspicion and doubt. If Karim falls to the darkness you weave, he will answer with his ruin. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating, the air vibrating with impending violence. Mai pressed against Rashad's side, heartbeats steady but fierce. She was no mere servant, but a guardian of their fragile alliance. "We will unveil every serpent hiding in plain sight," Mai promised, voice ironclad. Zara's laughter was low and deadly, echoing like distant thunder. "You underestimate how deep I will sink. Not all betray out of greed. Some do so for power, and some for survival." Rashad's eyes flickered beyond Zara's retreating form, casting toward the night-wrapped desert, where veiled threats simmered under moonlight. This fragile piece, so painstakingly built, balanced now on the razor's edge. "Enough words," Rashad growled, voice dark as a scimitar's edge. "Tonight, the kingdom will brace for what lurks beneath its golden skin. Mai, stand ready. A reckoning begins before dawn." The heavy door closed with a thunderous finality, sealing away the poison she left in her wake. Alone amid the echoes of suspicion, Rashad and Mai shared a silence heavy with dread, and an unspoken promise to protect what remained. Mai exhaled, a slow cascade of determination. The fate of the empire, of their hearts entwined in this fierce storm, trembled on shards of fragile hope. Rashad's proud face softened for a fleeting moment. Underneath the mantle of Sheikh, a man yearned for certainty, for loyalty, for a final victory that would bind the fractures inside and out. "The storm is gathering," he whispered, voice barely above the desert night wind. "Within its eye lies a secret waiting to tear us apart or bind us forever." Suddenly, the distant murmur of footsteps stirred behind the heavy velvet curtains. Both eyes snapped toward the shadows. A shape shifted there. A whisper stirred the silence. One voice, low and sharp, slicing through the tension like a blade. Zara is not alone. The moon hung low over the sprawling palace, its silver light pooling in soft shadows beneath the towering columns. Rashad al-Khoury stood motionless by the grand window, the weight of the sealed parchment still heavy in his hand, the wax mark of betrayal smeared faintly where he'd torn it open. The scent of jasmine, once a balm to soothe weary nights, now seemed a cruel reminder of the poison seeping through his empire. Mai lingered nearby, her presence steady and unwavering. But beneath her composed exterior, a storm raged. The name Zara echoed relentlessly in her mind, a dark chant entwining itself with every whispered secret that had tethered her to this gilded cage. She watched Rashad's strong back tense with the burden of unraveling truths, and felt the sharp pulse of urgency beating between them. The council fractures beneath her influence, Mai murmured, voice low, but laced with steel. Zara's reach is long. The alliances you built with iron and gold are crumbling like brittle stone under desert heat. Rashad's eyes burned with a fierce clarity, the proud facade momentarily cracked by the heavy toll of betrayal. Tonight, the palace must witness the reckoning it has long feared. No shadow will hide the serpent anymore. His voice was a command and a plea rolled into one, a mixture of resolve and raw vulnerability. Mai stepped closer, her silk gown brushing against the marble floor, a soft contrast to the storm swirling in her chest. Kareem remains a question mark, Sheikh. His loyalty wavers like the shifting dunes. If Zara's venom has reached him too, then the heart of your trust is bleeding. A bitter smile, taut and broken, crossed Rashad's lips. Brotherhood and betrayal dance dangerously close. Kareem's mask conceals more than friendship now, but I will expose the truth no matter the cost. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors sighed open with a slow, chilling creak. The air shifted as a figure slipped into the candlelit chamber, movement smooth and deliberate, carried with the unyielding confidence of a predator stepping into her kingdom. Zara. Her gaze flicked from Rashad to Mai, dark eyes shimmering with that cruel edge of satisfaction that ignites fear even in the strongest hearts. Her crimson lips curled into a slow smile, sweet poison cloaked in silken words. "Your Highness," she began, voice as smooth as flowing silk, yet sharp as desert winds. "I hope to spare you this confrontation. Alas, some truths refuse to stay buried beneath golden rugs and hollow promises." Rashad rose, regal and imposing, the gold embroidery of his robes catching the flickering flames like live embers. Your treachery has spread like wildfire across my lands, Zara. I will root out this corruption, or watch my empire burn with it. Her smile twisted with bitter sweetness. Treacherous? No. Ambitious? Yes. The right to power is not a crime, Rashad. It is a destiny you fear. Their eyes collided, storms raging in silence. The tension rippled through the room, thick and suffocating. Mai brushed a hand subtly against the hilt of her concealed dagger, a fragile whisper of menace beneath her delicate grace. Her eyes locked with Zara's, warning etched in their depths. This palace was not a playground for games, but a battlefield for survival. This kingdom was built on loyalty, Rashad intoned, voice resonant. And I will remind all who dwell within these walls what that loyalty costs. Zara's glare sharpened, her smile retreating, like a viper ready to strike. Loyalty? Like that of your brother Karim? How easily trust fractures when ambition whispers the sweetest lies. A shiver of cold ran down Rashad's spine at the mention of Karim. The brotherhood of youth, now tainted with suspicion's venom. If Karim falls into your darkness, he will answer with his ruin. A heavy silence pressed down, like the desert's midday sun. Mai kept close, pulse steady, her resolve a shield woven from months of hidden battles. We will expose every snake hiding in plain sight, she vowed softly, voice hardening into steel. Zara's laugh was a low, dangerous thing, echoing against marble and silk. You underestimate the depths to which I will sink. Betrayal comes not only from greed. Sometimes it is for power. Sometimes for survival. Rashad's gaze drifted toward the ebony night beyond the windows. The fragile peace he had built with his iron will now trembled on the edge of collapse. Enough words, he growled. Tonight, the palace braces for the reckoning buried beneath its glittering surface. Mai, stand ready. At dawn, we unmask the darkness settled here. Zara's retreat was as silent as her arrival. Her departure, leaving a lingering chill, a promise of warfare yet to unfold. The heavy door shut with a final thud that seemed to swallow the last flicker of hope. Alone, Rashad and Mai lingered between silence and storm, hearts pounding like war drums beneath coats of duty and desire. Mai breathed out slowly, determination igniting like desert fire. The fate of the empire, forged on loyalty, betrayal, and fragile love, hung by threads thinner than desert glass. Rashad's gaze softened momentarily. The king replaced briefly by the man who dared to hope. His voice was a whisper, barely caught by the night air. The storm gathers, but in its eye, the greatest secret awaits to either shatter us or bind us forever. A sudden shadow stirred behind the heavy curtains. Ulf turned sharply, senses sharpened by years of endless war. In the depths of darkness, a soft, chilling whisper tore through the silence. Zara is not alone. The dawn crept quietly over the emirate, soft golden light spilling like a gentle promise across the endless desert sands. Within the grand palace, the first rays kissed the ivory columns and intricate frescoes, illuminating a world that had been shadowed by deceit and danger only hours before. Sheikh Rashad al-Khoury stood tall by the wide-arched window, the weight of the night's torment slowly lifting from his broad shoulders. His gaze traced the horizon where sky met sand, a future unfolding before him, a future reclaimed from betrayal and darkness. The luxurious robes he wore seemed lighter now, as if the burden of hidden enemies was finally easing. Beside him, Mai stepped closer, her eyes reflecting the same quiet strength that had carried them through the storm. The fragile tension that once separated them had melted into a tender bond, forged by shared trials and unwavering loyalty. Tonight's reckoning had been fierce, stakes higher than either had dared to imagine. But it was over. The council chamber, once a chamber of whispers and mistrust, now echoed with the firm voices of justice. Zara's insidious web had been unearthed, her allies unmasked one by one as the palace guards, led by Mai's sharp instincts, closed the final nets around the traitors. Even Karim, the brother Rashad, once trusted blindly, had stood trial, not as a victim, but as a man who chose greed over fraternity. Rashad recalled the moment. Karim's mask finally fell, a painful fracture of brotherhood, yet a necessary cleansing fire. The heart that betrays must be held accountable, Rashad had declared, voice steady and resolute, untouched by bitterness, but full of the weight of hard-won clarity. Now, standing in the early morning peace, that pain softened into understanding. Not all wounds left scars. Some healed into wisdom. Mai's soft hand found Rashad's, fingers intertwining naturally, an unspoken promise of partnership beyond titles and empires. "We survived the storm," she whispered, voice warm and sure. "Yes," Rashad replied, eyes meeting hers with the tenderness of a man reborn. "And beyond the shadows lies a dawn we will build together." The palace gardens below bloomed anew, their night-blooming jasmine releasing a fragrance purer and sweeter in the morning light. The scent seemed to breathe life back into every corner, washing away the last remnants of fear that had lingered in the marble halls. In the great hall, courtiers gathered, faces softened by relief and hope. The emperor's oldest allies reaffirmed their oaths, pledging loyalty not to power alone, but to the man who had faced ruin and emerged stronger, who had chosen justice and love over vengeance. Rashad's mother, once cautious and distant, now embraced Mai with a genuine warmth that spoke of acceptance and new beginnings. The woman who had once doubted the maid's place beside her son now saw clearly the steel beneath Mai's quiet grace. A gentle smile curved Rashad's lips as he watched the uniting of family, something more precious than all the gold in his treasury. Their journey had been brutal, full of shadows and secrets, but in truth, it was one of transformation. Love had softened Rashad's iron will without breaking it. Mai had found strength she never knew she possessed, standing not behind the sheikh, but beside him. Together, they had unraveled lies that threatened to drown their world. Together, they now embraced a future built on trust. As they walked hand in hand through the sunlit corridors, Rashad's voice broke the comfortable silence. "Mai, the empire begins anew today, not just in wealth or power, but in the hearts of those who serve it." She squeezed his hand gently. "And I will stand with you, Sheikh, with all I am." Their eyes locked, speaking volumes beyond words, an alliance sealed by fire and unyielding hope. Outside, the desert wind stirred lazily, carrying with it the soft melodies of the morning muezzin, calling the faithful to prayer, a sound that in this new day felt like a blessing. Rashad paused at the palace balcony, gazing once more over the vast kingdom that awaited its renewed keeper. "The storm tested us," he said quietly, "but the sun always rises." Mai rested her head lightly against his shoulder, the fragile peace between them a promise fulfilled. Together, they watched as the vast sands shimmered golden under the awakening sun, their empire, their love, and their future all shining bright and limitless. In that serene dawn, the shadows of yesterday were no longer threats, but memories faced and overcome. And in the heart of the Sheikh, a new hope blossomed, steady, radiant, eternal.